What's good, people? Welcome back to the channel. KG is back. It's time for a brand new video talking all things Leeds United. Today, we're going to discuss Daniel Farke. Is his lack of rotation an issue, or is there no need to rotate as much as people think? I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on that, and I want yours too. Also, going to be speaking about our old friend early kickoffs, and will that be an issue for the remainder of the season? Please like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, drop your comments below. So, getting straight into this, and this comes courtesy of a subscriber. And look, this has been repeated in a few ways, but I feel like he probably rounded it off the best way that I think I can, answer in a way like this. So this from Ian, and he says the issue is Farker. His lack of rotation evaporates hunger and settles in complacency. He needs to utilize his bench, and that's the point of a squad. Utilize and refresh to keep them hungry. Look at our end of last season, same issue. And there's some good points in there. There absolutely is some good points. And look, as I've said before, I'm not a Daniel Farke defender. I'm always looking out for the best of Leeds United. But there's a couple of things that are different from last season compared to this one. Overall, I think our squad is better this season. We may not have the star power, the star dust like we did last season, but overall, our squad is more rounded. And I do feel that we've had more consistent performances this season in comparison to last year, where it was a bit choppy, a little bit, you get one good performance and then the same team will get trotted out, and it would be a little bit, of a slug until Jorginho or Somerville got us out of the mud. What I want to point out with this, and let me just say this, because Farke is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I do feel that he has rotated a little bit better this season. I do. I feel like he's utilized players a little bit better, and especially when it comes to substitutions. Last year, he wasn't subbing until the last 10 minutes, and I'm probably being generous there. Whereas this season, he's moved it to 20, as we've seen in the recent games, he's moved it to 55 and 62. The fact that we're having to look at those things for Farke does say something. But what I will say is that the lack of rotation here evaporates hunger. That is a true thing. And that is why I did the video recently on Brendan Aronson, because as good as Brendan's been for us this season, he is out of form. And it's plain to see. And that is when I do think you need to take people out. Look, we're in a winning team right now. We're 17 unbeaten. You don't, but not everyone plays well. Elan Melier is another glaringly blind spot. I would make the joke that he could just bat one in, and be conceded own goal, but he's done that, and yet he still continues to get picked. So there are blind spots for Daniel Farke. But what I will say in the main, people, is that the team hasn't needed to be changed that much. And if we could just go through the fixtures, just from the end of last year, and I'm not going to go through these in depth for each lineup, but I will just make a couple of points. Since 2025 started, we started off a bit slow. Then there's the Elan Melier horror show against Hull City. We then changed a lot of the team for the Harrogate game in the FA Cup. We then come back, and we're talking like over a week later to the Sheffield Wednesday League game. And that, if you remember the game, people, it was an easy game. It was quite easy. It was like almost like a stroll in the park. As was Norwich City. These weren't complicated games where the players were giving, fighting tooth and nail. I remember doing a couple of match reactions and saying these were like warm-up games. It was almost like training, So you have to think in context as well. Context has to be applied with everything. Sometimes even in the short turnaround in games, if the game hasn't, worn on the players too much and they're still fit to play in the next one and they're on a good run of form, then there's no reason to not pick them. Just think in some of these games, if when Danny James has scored 2 goals away, and just for rotation's sake, he says, I'm going to take James out and put someone else in just to keep him fresh, people would be going absolutely mad at that. What are you doing? You've taken out Dan James, who's on fire. Is he injured? Is he hurt? Is he tired? No. So why have you dropped him? Those would be the questions that are then thrown out at Daniel Farke, and rightly so too. You then go into that Burnley game, which was, it was what it was. We beat Cardiff 7-0. Tough away game at Coventry like 4 days later, but then we rotate for the Millwall game. And there was a lot of changes in that game where the squad was basically all different. And then we come back with our regular league team, a few days later against Watford, beat them 4-0 away. We then come to the later games now, more recent ones, where we've had a Monday fixture after like 6 days after the Watford game, and we beat Sunderland 2-1. You're in good spirits. A week later, We beat Sheffield United 3-1. And then obviously we go Monday to Saturday and we draw 1-1 against West Brom. The point I'm trying to make is this isn't like a real close cluster of fixtures where you think these players must be tired. They need changing. If you're talking about players out of form, I can get with that. Just like the West Brom game, Manor Solomon, he may have made the wrong choices, but he did say that Peru and James have been in good form lately, and I thought they could get us a late goal. And again, I understand that point. But if you think Ramazani should come on, for Solomon, I understand that point too. And that's one thing I've always said about Daniel Farke, because sometimes his subs do puzzle me. And that could be one of those where Solomon comes off, Ramazani comes on, and we go from there. And again, if you're questioning tactical wise, understandable. But if you're talking starting lineups, it's very difficult. Now, I'll give an example when we get to April. This is when things get hot and heavy. All right. You got a game at the end of March, 5th of April, then it's the 8th, 12th of April, 18th, 21st, 26th, and then of course the last game against, Plymouth away in May. But the point is, and of course, again, context has to be applied. If we're not having to exude so much energy in certain games, then maybe we can get away with keeping in the good form players for the next game. But it all depends on the game state. But in January, there was a couple of games where we were just literally just cruising. And just go into the team rotation. We talk about rotation. Fullback, especially at left back, is being rotated just by injury and suspension. Again, that would be something that people say when people get injured and someone comes out and someone plays well, he doesn't then put those players back in. He does have a blind spot for that. We only got to see Rothwell and Tanaka because of injuries to Gruev and Ampadu. Completely get all of that. But if you're talking Joe Roden, who is as durable as they come, how do you take him out just to rotate? I don't think you can. Dan James, he's been good. How do you take out Dan James in the form he's been? Solomon is one now where, and he's probably a really good example where he was on fire in January and most of February. He's cooled off a little in the last couple of games, and maybe that's now when you say, right, it's time for Ramazani to come in. But if you take out Manor Solomon, who was on fire in that period, just because you want to rotate, that doesn't send out a great message. And it also doesn't send out a great message if he's played well enough, and then he's had one bad game and you say, you got to come out. That people don't think about the player's psyche on that one. He's then thinking, man, so if I have one bad game, that means I'm coming out. That's a bit crap, isn't it? So you have to, there's just so many factors when it comes to this. I do understand with hunger though, because Brendan Aronson is probably the perfect example. We've seen Peru come out the team, we've seen Joseph come out the team, we've seen various players come out the team, but Brendan Aronson right now is on a run where he's started over 30 games, and it's like, well, he's not played well in a couple of them. It's time for someone to come in. And people in as well saying about, oh, that's why we should have got a 10. Danny Farker himself said it would have been ideal to get a 10, but we've got Ramazani, we've got Nanto, and even Mano can play there if necessary. So this will probably be a time where people say it is necessary. But my overriding point is, this isn't like last season where we had Jorginho that was coming back from hernia surgery and he did not need to come back so soon. You could have used Gelhardt there. You could have used other options. You could have started Joseph a bit more as well. This isn't like last year where we was playing a tough game and then a soft game, and you could have taken Somerville out for the soft game and put in Jaden Anthony or rotated in that way, put in Nanto or James, rotate it around. It's a bit different for me this season. That's what I mean. I just apply context to it. And if it was any way similar, I would say so. But I think I do feel that the performances overall have been a bit more controlled as well. So in comparison to last year, where we was huffing and puffing a hell of a lot in the games. So listen, and even Tanaka as well, by the way, had a spell out of the team around, I think around Christmas, where he was put on the bench just for rest reasons as well. So listen, I could be wrong. That's fine. Give me your thoughts in the comments below. One thing that has cropped up though, and this is courtesy LUFC data, he has given us the reminder of our early kickoff woes. And much like I've said about the league season, why I feel confident that we're still finishing top two, and I still feel that way today, people. These are patterns too. These are patterns that can't be ignored. And LUFC data here, Leeds have just won 2 of our last 12 championship matches that are kicked off at 1:30 or earlier. And you see here, I mean, these aren't even outstanding teams. You know what I mean? These are some very winnable games. And, the 2 greens in there, they don't fool me. There's like, oh, that's nice. But you just look at all of this and you go, wow. And then the remaining games, Leeds remain in early kickoffs, so Portsmouth away, QPR away, Luton away, Plymouth away, all away games, which does not sound good. And listen, we are better than these teams, no doubt about it. But then there's other factors, and again, this is where I put in context and everything else. Luton, Plymouth, if they're not relegated by then, they could be fighting for their lives. You know what I mean? And we know what that's like. You can have the better team, but sometimes that bit of fight, that bit of hunger can get you over the line and get you the points necessary to beat a team like Leeds United. So it is going to be something we need to be worried about. But this again goes back to Daniel Farker again with preparation. Get the preparation right. He's been asked about this already earlier this season about the early kickoffs. He says they prepare in the same way. The results would say that's not true. But if you're gonna, get rid of this voodoo of early kickoffs, we're gonna have to get maximum points in some of these games. That's 4 fixtures out the remaining fixtures left. We're gonna have to get 3 points I would say at least three of these places. What just to make sure, and leave no doubt about automatic promotion for me. So it's going to be an interesting one. Do the early kickoffs, give you cause for concern? Again, let me know in the comments. For me, I'm hoping that this team's quality will shine through in these kind of games, and we can just get over the line and get promoted in the top two. Because listen, we do not need to be seeing the playoffs. That is for sure. All right. That is for show. All right. But listen, people, that is it for the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like it before you go, and I'll see you in the next one, people. Peace out.